Step aside. VIPs only. The command cracked through the marble-floored lobby like a whip, slicing through the hum of soft music and murmured conversation. Heads turned, then quickly looked away again. The doorman's voice had been loud, deliberate. And now, all eyes watched, silently complicit, as a tall black man in a perfectly tailored gray suit stood still for a moment too long. He wasn't confused. He had heard the instruction, but he wasn't going to move simply because someone decided he looked out of place. That didn't go over well. A thick-set security guard moved forward, all business, his gloved hand clamping down on the man's forearm. "Sir," I said, "step aside," he growled, already dragging the man away from the plush velvet ropes and the red carpet that had been unfurled just that morning for Western Tower's Grand Investment Summit. The crowd of arriving guests, white, gleaming, clad in silk and Italian leather, watched silently. They said nothing. A woman in pearls sipped her champagne without blinking. A man in a navy suit checked his watch, eager to move along. No one asked questions. No one intervened. Behind the front desk, the receptionist, young, blonde, lips painted a perfect shade of rose, pressed a button on her headset. Her voice was clipped and precise. "Move him out. He's making the entrance look bad." They assumed he didn't belong, that he was a mistake, a fluke, a valet who had wandered into the wrong line. What they couldn't have imagined was that the man they were pushing aside held the final approval on every cent of the multi-million-dollar expansion they were all celebrating. Every deal, every contract, every career pivot that hinged on the future of Western Tower. All of it rested on his word. But they hadn't asked for his name. The man said nothing as he was herded toward the edge of the lobby. He let them go through their motions. He observed them all, each face, each voice, each smile that tightened when it looked at him. He noted the forced politeness, the measured cruelty. His name was Elijah Ward, and before the day ended, everyone in that building would know it. The Western Tower lobby was a modern cathedral of commerce glass walls, chrome accents, and imported marble that reflected the noon sun like fire. Outside, banners fluttered in the breeze, touting the new era, innovation through legacy, expansion through excellence. Inside, investors and executives sipped mimosas and complimented each other on designer lapel pins. The air smelled like money. Elijah Ward, though, wasn't here for the champagne. He adjusted the cuffs of his shirt and approached the receptionist's desk again, this time with slower, measured steps. His face revealed nothing. "Excuse me," he said, offering the gold-foiled invitation that bore the corporate seal. "I have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Hart and the board at 10 o'clock. The receptionist glanced at the invitation, her fingers pausing. "One moment," she said curtly. She didn't need to look closely. She had seen enough to know it was real. Still, she set it aside. "You'll need to step to the side while we finish checking in our VIPs, she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Before Elijah could respond, a family of 4 strolled in, blonde, rich, laughing too loudly. Khakis, pearls, private school uniforms. The receptionist's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Welcome, Langfords. Right this way." They weren't asked for credentials. No one checked a list. A staff member peeled the velvet rope away and handed them champagne. They were ushered into the elevator reserved for platinum guests. Elijah remained by the desk, silent, watching. Security approached again. "ID," barked the guard. This one wore a badge that said Keller. He flipped Elijah's driver's license around like it might be fake. Scanned it, handed it back like he was doing a favor. Elijah said only, "I'm here on invitation. Sit over there." The man pointed toward a cold steel bench near the window. The lobby hummed with polite conversation, none of it directed toward him. The glass made everything seem brighter, shinier, but it couldn't hide the rot. He sat, unmoving, listening. From a nearby corner, the Western Tower regional manager strolled by, laughing. His name was Blake Trevors, and he reeked of cologne and smugness. He looked at Elijah just long enough to smirk. "Not everyone in a suit belongs in one," he said loudly to no one in particular. Laughter followed. Elijah didn't flinch. He folded his hands, smoothed his jacket. They didn't know who he was. That was the point. No one had taken the time to learn, and they were about to pay for it. Across the room, interns whispered and exchanged nervous glances. One of them, a young woman with curly dark hair named Maya, glanced toward Elijah, then quickly backed down at her clipboard. Her mouth was tight, her knuckles white from gripping the pen too hard. She had seen the name on the guest list. She knew who he was, but she also knew the rules here unspoken, but ironclad. If Chloe, the lead receptionist, hadn't acknowledged the mistake, no one else would. To speak up meant to risk your place. Elijah waited. Every tick of the clock was another record in his mind. Noted, logged, stored. At precisely 10:17, the lobby doors swung open again. A second wave of guests arrived, men in navy suits and women in jewel-toned dresses, all ushered in with handshakes and smiles. Elijah remained untouched, unnoticed. Travers walked past him again, this time with two junior executives in tow. They laughed at something he said, and then one of them turned, looked Elijah up and down, and said under his breath, "Looks lost." Chloe heard it and chuckled. Elijah stood up. He didn't make a scene, didn't raise his voice. He simply walked back to the front desk, stood still, and waited for Chloe to look at him. She didn't. He spoke calmly. "I'm here to finalize the vote on the tower's $700 million expansion. I will give you one more opportunity to grant access to the executive floor before I contact my legal team." Chloe froze. The color drained from her face. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice brittle. "Elijah Ward," he said simply. "Check again." She turned to her monitor and typed something in. Her lips parted slightly. Then again. A third time. The screen lit up. There it was. Principal investor Humiliated. Ward. Executive access confirmed. Authorization. Level red. Chloe didn't speak. She stepped back from the desk as if it had burned her. Blake Travers, watching from across the lobby, frowned. "What the hell's going on?" he asked. One of the interns stewed slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's the majority shareholder." The room froze. Conversations halted. Eyes widened. Whispers swept like wildfire. "Wait, that's him. Elijah Ward. He's the reason this whole thing exists. The expansion owns the land rights. Did you hear what they did to him?" The pieces clicked together faster than Chloe could recover. Her knees wobbled. Blake stepped forward, forcing a smile. "Mr. Ward, too didn't realize." Elijah looked him directly in the eye. "I know." Blake tried again, stumbling over his own arrogance. "This is all just a misunderstanding. We weren't aware. Because you didn't care to be." Silence. Chloe stammered, "Please, let me escort you upstairs." No, Elijah's voice was calm, but final. "You've already escorted me to where I need to be." He took a step forward and turned to face the room. His voice carried not loud, but unmistakable. "You assumed I didn't belong, and no one questioned it. No one dared to speak. You treated me like a stain on your marble. You made a decision about my worth before you read a single word of my name." People shifted uncomfortably. He turned to Chloe. "This company claims to value tradition and excellence. But the only tradition I've seen here is discrimination, and the only excellence is in the precision of your exclusion." He turned toward Blake. "Effective immediately, the expansion is halted. Funding frozen. All contractors suspended until a full audit is conducted." Chloe gasped audibly. Blake lunged forward. "You can't." "I already have." Phones buzzed across the lobby. Executives pulled them from pockets and purses. Notifications exploded across their screens. Project Wardstone expansion hold initiated by primary investor. All staff alert investor status update. Media hold recommended urgent. The news spread like fire through dry brush. People stepped back. Eyes dropped. No one dared speak. Elijah nodded once to Maya, the only person who hadn't smiled at his humiliation. Then he walked through the velvet ropes that had once barred him, past the elevators, past the polished concierge desks, and straight into the executive conference suite. No security stopped him. No voice challenged his steps. He had always belonged here. They were just the last to learn it. Inside the executive suite, Elijah was met by Nathan Hart himself, CEO of Western Tower, and the man who had personally courted Elijah's investment for over 2 years. Nathan stood the moment Elijah entered, hands open in an apologetic gesture. "Elijah," he said, voice low, "I am so sorry. If I'd known." Elijah raised a hand. "I don't want apologies, Nathan. I want accountability." Nathan's throat bobbed. "It will happen. Today." Elijah walked past him and set his briefcase on the polished mahogany table. Around him, the board members, silent, stiff, pale, watched him with reverent discomfort. He spoke calmly. "Effective immediately, I'm launching a full inquiry into the conduct of front-facing staff. Every reception transcript, every name on the guest pass log, every note of exclusion that has happened under your roof, I want in a file by this evening." Nathan nodded. Elijah continued. "Chloe Bennett is to be placed on immediate leave pending review. If that process isn't started by the time I leave this room, I pull all funding. Permanently." No one challenged him. One of the board members, a woman with streaks of silver in her hair, cleared her throat. "Mr. Ward, I just want to say, we're ashamed." "What happened?" Elijah cut in, not with malice, but with clarity. "You should be. You build a building that shines like crystal but treats its foundation like dirt. That doesn't impress me. That insults me." Silence. He let it hang there for a moment, then opened his briefcase, pulled out a slim folder, and slid it across the table. "This," he said, "is a restructuring proposal. Not just for your lobby, for your culture. If you want my money, you accept these terms." Nathan opened the folder, his fingers shaking. The top sheet was titled, "Equity is not an option. It's a standard." Nathan looked up. "And if we say no?" Elijah turned to the window, gazing out over the city he had helped build with sweat and sacrifice. "Then you won't just lose my money," he said softly. "You'll lose your reputation. And I promise you, the silence of this morning will be nothing compared to the noise I'll make if this company continues to pretend that men like me don't belong." He turned, his eyes sweeping the room. "I don't need Western Tower," he said, "but Western Tower needs people like me." The boardroom was still. Then one by one, the members nodded. The vote was unanimous. Downstairs, Chloe sat frozen at the front desk, her headset askew, her face blank as message after message flooded her screen. Internal HR requests, meeting recalls, a disciplinary summons marked immediate. Blake had already been escorted out, his badge deactivated, his belongings boxed up by building security. His face flushed and sweating had twisted in protest, but no one stopped to listen. The elevator doors closed on him with an air of finality. Interns whispered. Guests avoided eye contact. Maya quietly placed a resignation letter on Chloe's desk and walked out with her head high. By 3 p.m., news of what had happened had leaked. Anonymous sources inside the company confirmed to media outlets that Western Tower's most important investor had been racially profiled inside the very building his money was funding. Hashtags began to trend. Think pieces flooded LinkedIn. Screenshots of Chloe's earlier behavior were posted on employee forums. A photo of Elijah seated alone near the lobby window, stone-faced. Patient was retweeted over 40,000 times with the caption, "This is what grace under fire looks like." 2 weeks later, Western Tower publicly released a statement. "We deeply regret the treatment of Mr. Elijah Ward. A full audit of company protocols is underway. Leadership is changing. Inclusion is no longer an ideal, it is our requirement." But Elijah didn't read the statement. He didn't need to. Instead, he returned to his work, funding scholarship programs for Black students in architecture and urban development, mentoring young executives who were told they didn't fit the part, launching a foundation dedicated to transforming public-private spaces into models of dignity. He never mentioned Western Tower again, because the message had been delivered not in a press release, not in a viral video, but in the silent, unshakable posture of a man who knew exactly who he was. He never had to raise his voice. His presence was loud enough. And now, every building that bore his name would carry a new legacy, one built not on exclusion, but on recognition. Not on silence, but on justice. not on marble and glass alone, but on truth.